Good evening. My name is Brendan Shea, and I believe that I'm a good candidate for the scholarship for three reasons. I believe these experiences that I've been through after surviving this injury have, for better or worse, helped mold me into a more effective force, the kind of person worth investing in. Secondly, I work hard every day to use my resources wisely to strategically accomplish the most possible with what little tools and resources that I can string together. And lastly, I believe I'm a good candidate because I make a conscious effort to use every opportunity that I get to use the fruits of my labor to give back to survivors of spinal cord injury, to help others, and to make a difference within our community. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of mostly everything that goes along with this sort of an injury. I believe that I'm a good candidate for the scholarship because these experiences have molded me even more so into the type of man worth investing in. I'm told that I died twice when my heart stopped in the ER and once again shortly after surgery. What I experienced and went through those first couple months, I'm not very fond of reminiscing about. I spent a couple of months on a ventilator with a trach in my throat, unable to breathe on my own. The first month, I was lying face down for 16 hours per day to drain the fluid out of my lungs from pneumonia. I remember more of what went on these days than I care to think about. My parents had initially been told that if I made it at all, I would probably most likely never be able to get out of bed, and I would probably be in a vegetative state of some sort. And so my parents and my family prepared themselves for this to be the new normal for our family. My lease had expired on my apartment, and so my parents went up there and moved all my stuff out and threw most of it away. They also had a junk disposal service go to my storage locker that had most of my things from my previous apartment to throw away all my furniture and belongings that I had stored there as well. No one was sure if my insurance would cover a quality inpatient acute rehabilitation hospital with my current condition. My parents and my little sisters talked to everyone and every connection they knew in healthcare, and with a little luck and by the grace of God, once my fever broke from my pneumonia, I ended up being transferred to a place that I will never forget. After about a month and a half in that ICU in Tufts Medical Center, I spent roughly 3 months in an incredible hospital for spinal cord injury at Spaulding Rehabilitation Hospital in Boston, and I saw some great people working really hard to provide quality care to spinal cord injury patients who needed it desperately. I weaned myself off the ventilator and made pretty significant progress given what my previous prognosis was. However, I noticed that I felt like I was in many ways simply being prepared for life in a wheelchair, and I kept wondering where the next step was. I had nowhere to live because my old apartment was gone. My parents told me that they could not take care of me at home because they were both in their late 60s and were still working full time. On November 20th, my 29th birthday, I was transferred out of Spaulding, and I ended up stuck in a state hospital slash nursing home for a little over 2 months in Tewksbury. That was called Tewksbury State Hospital. There I saw the bad and the ugly side of the medical system when it comes to care for people with chronic medical conditions and the elderly. This hospital is probably about over 100 years old, and they actually still had the cemeteries out back where they used to bury the patients when they died there long ago. I saw elderly and disabled people being warehoused there and was told that this was the best sort of life that they could hope for. At the age of 29, I was told that I should live there for the rest of my life because they said that's what people in my situation are supposed to do. I clearly remember an elderly person who had survived a serious stroke screaming from down the hall somewhere one evening, screaming, "I want to go home, I hate it here, just kill me now, kill me now." You can't make this kind of stuff up. The staff there told me that if I kept up good behavior for a couple of years, I might be able to earn the privileges to be able to go to Walmart by myself on the bus on the weekends to buy little trinkets and small things for my room in the hospital. There was another patient there with a very similar spinal cord injury who had earned these privileges. He had been living there in that hospital for about 14 years now at that point. I grew up going hiking and camping alone in the woods for weeks at a time here in New England, navigating with a map and compass, hiking hundreds of miles, and now I was told that this is the best life can get? Told this is the most I can do. Little trinkets at Walmart and decorations for my hospital room, along with all the rest of the patients sitting in the hallway all day long. Human beings are capable of so many great things, and I can't believe the way that I saw people being treated, and worse, being told and convinced that they needed to settle for less. It was so crushing to see and watch some of these people settle for that life and actually be convinced of this and accept it. I finally got out of the nursing home a couple of months later, and I found an accessible apartment in Worcester, Massachusetts, with the help of some of my family. However, just a couple of weeks later, I ended up in the hospital for a few days because I was actually injured due to poor care as a nurse placed a catheter incorrectly and ended up blowing up the balloon in my urethra, causing some severe bleeding. My mom came to see me in the hospital room afterwards, and I had a couple of units of blood drain out of my urethra because of that nurse's mistake. And she told me that my father was so emotionally drained that he was on the verge of having having a mental breakdown and having another heart attack. So they just could not do it anymore, and that I was going to be on my own. She had flagged down one of the nurses and told her that the social worker was going to have to find a place for me to go live because they could not help me try to live on my own anymore. So from my hospital bed with my laptop, I reached out and found more PCAs and went back to my apartment on my own because there was no way I could give up the apartment and this chance that I had to fight for my life. If I knew if that apartment was gone, at least ran out, I knew there was a good chance I was probably never going to get back out very easily. This situation has nearly torn my family apart. However, we found a way to come back together and become stronger through it all. Somehow. I've seen what it's like to be on your own after leaving the acute rehabilitation hospital and what it's like to search for answers to so many questions with so little help out there. For some reason, I wrongly assumed that there was some sort of a modern medical system out there that was equipped to handle this sort of a medical situation. I don't know why I thought that, and it was a rude awakening afterwards. I've not done it perfectly, though. Somehow I've managed to patch together my progress to get to the point where I am at now. I believe that I'm a good candidate for the scholarship because I always endeavor to do my best to use my resources wisely to work hard to achieve success. If awarded this scholarship, I would use whatever funding I receive strategically to make it mean something, by using the successes from how it would help me to make a difference. When I was in acute rehabilitation at Spalding, I was told that I could get my student loans forgiven completely because of my injury, and that I would have to pay nothing at all. I could get about $40,000 worth of debt completely wiped out. I wondered, where's the catch? Turns out the catch was that I would have to agree to never really go back to school again and never really work. I would, in my view, have to completely give up on life and essentially accept that life was over now, and I would probably just have to sit back and watch TV the rest of my life. This was completely unacceptable in my view. That is not the kind of man that I am, that is not the kind of man that I was raised to be, and that will not be me. This means that in order to win my life back, I have to use my resources extremely wisely in order to get the kind of life that I want. I will not accept anything less than the kind of life that I was supposed to have for my family. That and more now, because I have so much more of a realization of how fragile life is and how important the important things are in life. I refuse to live a life that includes anything less than a wife, a home, and grandchildren for my parents, along with a good career to support the kind of meaningful life that I must achieve. With this as the trail that I've mapped out, I must work hard to use all my skills and abilities every second of every day to get there. If awarded this scholarship, I would put it to good use and find a way to pay it back one day, as well as pay it forward. I work hard every day to utilize my resources as well as make progress and achieve success with my life. I live on my own here in Worcester in a 2-bedroom apartment in downtown in the city, and while my family has helped me sometimes financially, I'm responsible for managing most everything in my day-to-day life. I have to manage my calendar with all my doctor's appointments, physical therapy, college classes, and homework. I run a team of roughly half a dozen PCAs, and I'm responsible for advertising, hiring, scheduling, managing, disciplining, and firing my employees. I have to manage a budget, run payroll every weekend, and make sure the numbers all add up and that they're right, and that nothing goes wrong. And if something does go wrong, I'm the one who has to fix it. I have to do all this without the use of my arms or hands yet. It's difficult and frustrating, and oftentimes it's hell when you combine it together with chronic pain and broken assistive technology, complaining employees, and other various health complications. I have to shoulder all this because I understand that it would be a complete waste of time to complain about it all. It's me alone in the wilderness here again, and I must survive. I thank God that I was raised to be the kind of man who is able to survive this kind of hell. My family put so much of their heart and soul into raising me. I cannot let all this go to waste and end up as nothing and let my family fall asunder. I must not let that happen. I will not let that happen. I'm the eldest son with two little sisters. It is my responsibility to have grandchildren for my parents and to continue the family. It is my responsibility to pass on our family name. It is my responsibility to take care of my family, and that was only more strongly reinforced this past Easter weekend when I learned that my mom had just been diagnosed with throat cancer on Easter. I must succeed. This cannot all be for nothing. All those Red Sox games my dad took me to, and all those times my mom took me to Cape Cod, I will not allow this to all be for nothing. After going through the experiences that I have and seeing the things that I've seen, I'm so incredibly grateful for everything that I have in life. So grateful that I still have my mind and my heart and my life. While I am so grateful to still be alive, I have so much to do and so much to work on for myself and my family. I need so much more, and I can't stop. This has to be an all-day, everyday thing. I need to eat, sleep, and breathe this every second of the day to save this. Yet I cannot help but take in all the things that I've seen and I've witnessed through these experiences. Most significantly, the complete trail of destruction of this injury wreaks upon the lives of their survivors and those of their friends and family. I believe that I'm a good candidate for the scholarship because I use what gains and successes that I can create for myself to reinvest in working to help others who have survived spinal cord injury. I'm working with the United Spinal Association nonprofit group to help other survivors in developing new content for our organization as well. Through some networking connections, I got in touch with the Chief Development Officer at the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, and I'm in talks with the development team there about working on potential new fundraising campaigns. I cannot ignore what I've seen here, and I work hard to get involved in everything I can in relation to curing spinal cord injury and bettering the lives of those who survived it. I cannot forget the sights that I have seen and the way that this situation just completely destroys lives and families. If I were to be healed tomorrow, I could not shut the door to those sights and forget about them. My heart cries out in agony for what has been done to my life. But despite how loud my own screams are, it's impossible to ignore the voices of those around me whose hearts cry out just the same. I see the pain I feel inside reflected back at me on the faces of all those who I meet who've gone through this nightmare. I must save myself. However, it's impossible for me to ignore the plight of those around me. I've gotten so much help and advice from different people who've already gone through this, and I cannot thank them enough. I try to work hard every day to make a difference, not only in my own life, but also in the lives of others who have to live this nightmare. I stand on the shoulders of giants, those people who have survived and gone through this before me, many of them back in the days before modern computers and assistive technology. I do not have the sort of conscience that would allow me to ignore the existential agony and anguish of those around me. They call spinal cord injury an orphan condition because it's one that is all alone and that no one cares about. I believe that I'm a good candidate for the scholarship because I'm going to use my resourcefulness and all my skills that I have to make sure that this orphan survives.